Many people grew up in a perfect home with two living parents. Growing up, I would get so jealous of my friends being able to do stuff with both of their parents, but for me, it was different. I grew up in two houses ever since I was 4 when my parents decided to split up. It was the worst thing I had to experience. It was difficult on me and my brother from all the screaming and yelling they did at both of each other. One thing I remember is waking up and seeing my mom start to pack up all her stuff. I was so confused, not knowing what's going on and how to comprehend. Later, I had to deal with so many court days and CPS showing up at my house. Both my parents would call CPS on each other saying they aren't a good parent and that they don't deserve full custody. When I was little, I didn't realize all this was to find out which parent gets to keep me. From all this, I never wanted to be around my parents, so I'd always go with my grandma. She would always take me when things got rough and would make everything feel better. She's the one that took me to all of my events. My dad never did anything with me when I was a little kid. The only time I got together was for this Christmas card. Every time I would go to my dad's, I would just lock myself in my room and wait till it was time to go back to my mom's. That's why I loved my mom's house more. She'd always play with dolls, dress up, and even take me outside. It felt more like a home than ever. My dad's side of the family never wanted anything to do with my brother and I. We were the first grandchildren, and they acted like we didn't even exist. So we hated going to see them. On the other side, my mom's family was the very best. My grandpa got me into dirt bikes and quads when I was just 5 years old, and I have loved them ever since. My great-grandpa got me into liking tomatoes, and I'm obsessed with them. And my grandma, she was my best friend. She was my favorite person on the earth. She made me feel safe through everything that happened and felt like everything was going to be fine. My dad never bought groceries and never had clothes for me at his house. The only thing I had was a room with a bed. It never felt like a home at my dad's. My mom called CPS and told them about the living conditions, so this made CPS do lots of checkups on my dad to see if things are changing. CPS drama stopped when I was in about 4th grade. My parents never talked, but would avoid each other at all costs. I think the thing that hurt the most is that my mom would make fun of my dad, calling him fat, worthless, and my dad would say my mom is bipolar and doesn't care about anything but herself. Hearing both my parents talk about one another sucked because I wanted to defend both, but if I defended my dad, my mom would flip out and tell me to leave her house immediately. From here on out, I felt like I always had to pick a side. Later on down the road, we didn't continue to follow the court dates that my parents were assigned. I kind of just went wherever I wanted, except for holidays. I chose my mom's house more than my dad's just because she was more of a parent taking care of me than my father was. Once I was in middle school, my mom and I started getting into big fights that made me leave her house and go live with my dad. I didn't like living with him, but I had nowhere else to go. The longest we would fight was about 3 months. When I would eventually go back, it was like she wasn't even my mom anymore and that I was practically raising myself, even though I was living under her roof. My mom had said some pretty hurtful things to me, like I'm fat and that I don't deserve her and that I'm better off just leaving her, and so on. Hearing my own mother say those things to me hurt the most. I prayed every night just to have a good relationship with her once again. In middle school, I kind of rebelled, thinking my parents didn't really care about me. I would sneak out and go hang out with friends and even end up staying the night at their house. I would never want to be home, and I did everything I could to be away. My mom never really cared that I wasn't home. She would never text me asking where I was or what I was doing or even if I was okay. My dad, on the other hand, would text me, but I would ignore it because all I wanted was my mom. Some of my friends' parents knew exactly what was happening with my family and welcomed me to come over whenever I needed. When high school came, everything changed even more. It was freshman year and I was so excited to start school and cheer. I was surrounded by my friends and everything was so amazing. When I decided to join the cheer team, my mom was not happy. Her and my dad argued because they didn't want to pay for anything. They ended up splitting the cost just like they do for everything else. I begged them to let me cheer because it was something that can keep me occupied and away from them. Then I decided to run for student government. My mom laughed at me, saying I'm not popular enough to win, and maybe she was right because I lost by 1 vote for president. My mom never really was happy for whatever I did and accomplished at the time. She would just make fun of it and carry on. My sophomore year, I made the varsity cheer team. My mom's reaction was like, wow, why'd they pick you? Are you really that good? My mom's comments and opinions really did hurt me, just because she just broke down everything I was happy about. My dad, on the other hand, was very proud of me. Now it was junior year, one of the worst years I've ever experienced. It started off good, but I got blindsided by something, which took a turn. Those nights I would spend crying myself to sleep sucked. All my mom would ever say is, "Shut up, I'm trying to sleep." Not even ask if I was okay. My dad noticed something was wrong every time he saw me, but I would just tell him I'm fine. I didn't really know how to handle this all on my own, and all I wanted was my mom to be there for me. I ended up telling my dad what I went through, and he got sad because of what I had to put myself through. He wishes I would have just told him. But by that, my bond with my dad got way stronger, and now I tell him most of the stuff that happens in my life. Now it's senior year, and things are better, but not as good as I want them. Every time I have a special event, or game, or just something important to me, I have to pick which parent gets to go, and usually they both end up not coming. I don't think it's fair to me at all. For my senior night for cheer, I wanted both my parents there, but my mom had yelled at me prior to my game and said if my dad goes, she isn't. She ended up coming because my grandpa came down from Reno just to see me. I had one of the worst senior nights just because first, my mom ruined my mood, and then I couldn't have both my parents there, but my friends made up for it. At any event, they don't even want to be in the same room. Them being divorced has ruined so many things for me just because they can't put their differences aside for me for a couple hours. Them acting like this just makes everything harder for me. Now I'm almost graduating, and I just hope they can be fine at my graduation because they are both coming no matter what. I hope I can make them proud in life. My mother and I are finally better than ever before, and even though we have our differences, we don't fight as bad as we used to. Our bond has gotten way better. Things have gotten so much better, making the end of my high school years great. Life becomes easier when you learn to accept an apology you never got. That was written by Robert Brault. I chose this quote because even though my parents never apologized to me for putting me through a lot, I know life still has to go on and that they love me and things will get better.